Part 3 of our cornerback discussion is our biggest questions about the group. And then we're going to talk about matchups, and then we're going to get into our bold predictions. So we like to have a little bit of fun with all of these groups and put out some bold predictions and what we think can happen. And again, those bold predictions are rooted in reality, but they're also supposed to be some fun. And we'll see where the boys going to go with that. But the first thing we're going to talk about in this section, gentlemen, are the biggest questions. And the first question on the board, and I will let Trevor kick this one off. Can Leonard Moore build on his rookie season?
Yeah, we touched a lot on it when we were kind of going through the depth chart breakdown, and I view the first two questions going hand in hand. Bryan brought it up earlier that question 1 and question 2 is kind of what puts this room from good to elite.
Do them both, Trev. Just go ahead. Combine them. Do it.
So question 1 that we had on there, like Vince said, was can Leonard Moore build on his rookie season? Can you go from being elite for a true freshman to just being an elite corner for college football? And then when you talk about Christian Gray, he wasn't the same player that he was, and we saw it on film, we saw it on the field, that he wasn't the same guy after his injury. If he can return to true form like he was the first 4 games of the season, and the Christian Gray that we saw against Texas A&M, against Miami of Ohio, and then in moments, the Christian Gray that we would see at times against USC and at times against Penn State and at times against teams on the back half of their schedule, if you can put that all together and be a more consistent player, I don't know if there's an argument to be made about who the top cornerback duo is in college football. I truly believe that. But those two things go hand in hand with the expectation for this room, the standard to this room, to going back to what we first talked about of deny my man, which I love that. I figured out what that meant today. I really did. I always wondered what that meant.
That dude, Mike Mickens,
that's literally what I thought it was. I literally thought it stood for darn Mike Mickens, but not darn. You know what I mean? Man.
That's probably what teams that are recruiting against Notre Dame are like. Dang,
Mike. They just walk away. Yeah. Yeah. There's a team in Happy Valley walking away going DMM. But at the end of the day, when you go and you look at this team, first and foremost, the potential of this room, the potential of the cornerback room will be kind of solved in questions 1 and 2. Can Leonard Moore build on his rookie season, and will Christian Gray get back to pre-injury form?
So, Trevor, was that shade in reference to them literally shutting Penn State's receivers out? So, dang Mike Mickens, or Mike Mickens shutting them out on the recruiting trail, and dang Mike Mickens?
There was a DMM out there in January of this year and in June of this year.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these things are – this is the key, right? I mean, the depth and all those other things, these are the key. Can Leonard Moore, can he build on his rookie year? Even a little. It's not like, okay, go from being this guy and now you've got to, grow your game 90% to become
he was
this
a freshman
guy.
All-American. So
freshman player of the year
right.
As a true freshman,
right.
on a one where they have redshirt freshmen on that list.
So stupid. I don't like that. But anyway,
agree.
Different conversation.
Agree completely.
Yeah.
So I think that should reserve for true freshmen and redshirt freshmen who didn't play as freshmen at all, because they were injured, couldn't practice, couldn't do any of that. You go through a whole year of practice, you're not a freshman anymore. But anyway, I look at it and say he's just can he get better? And then the big one, number 2 is the big one, is Christian Gray's got to be that guy. He's got to be pre-injury Christian Gray with better technique. That's where he needs to be as a player. And if he can get there, to your point, Trevor, there's no doubt who the best cornerback room in college football is. Because if you go back and look last year's room, they made a lot more mistakes than the 2023 cornerback room of Cam Hart and Benjamin Morrison. A lot more mistakes. They didn't play as many teams that could hurt them. And sometimes they were good enough to overcome their mistakes because of how fast and athletic they are. They've got to eliminate those mistakes this year and become more sound football players. And if they, you hope they can, but we don't know that they can, which is why because it's like, these aren't like leading questions where we're going to bring up the question and then tell you why it's not really a question, because that'd be stupid, because then they're not questions. These are things that dude, we hope that they can do that, but we don't know. They've got to go show it. I think Christian Gray can be a star. He's got to go prove it. I think Leonard Moore could be one of the best cornerbacks to ever play at Notre Dame of my lifetime, but he's got to prove it. He's not there yet. I remember Todd Light. He ain't there yet. Believe me. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to get there, but he's got the tools to be there. I mean, I don't know that he's Benjamin Morrison yet. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to take that jump, but he's capable of it. Now we just need to see it.
Next question on the list, gentlemen, and I think this is a good one, and this is probably one that a lot of people have that are not as dialed into, the people that Notre Dame has brought in from the transfer portal. But is Devonte Smith as good as advertised? Is he going to carry on the tradition, frankly, of the guys that Notre Dame has brought in at the nickel position and done really, really, really well?
Yeah.
Regardless of what they did at their last school, they come into Notre Dame and all of a sudden they lock down that nickel position. Is Devonte Smith a guy that's in line with that and what he's going to be able to do?
Yeah, it's well, number one, both of those guys were good players at the school they were at. And I liked both pickups. I liked the Thomas Harper pickup even more than Jordan Clark. Jordan Clark I liked, but I wasn't like in love with it. He was a much better player than I thought he was going to be. I really liked the Thomas Harper pickup, and he was better than I thought he was going to be. That's the thing is, and when you look at Devonte Smith, why is he getting more attention nationally than the other two? Because they came from Oklahoma State and Arizona State, and he came from
Alabama. Yeah, 100%.
But the film also tells you a story that, like, this might be the best one yet because he's a little bit of a combination of Thomas Harper and Jordan Clark. He's a little bit more physical like Thomas Harper was. Like, Thomas is a guy you're going to blitz off the edge, and you were, like, literally concerned about him blowing somebody up.
Central Michigan's quarterback is.
Yep.
Ooh.
And he was physical on the edge against screens. Like, Jordan Clark was more of like he was going to take your ankles out. He was going to be a cover guy because he's not real big. We saw Thomas Harper get a pick in the NFL last year. Even though he went undrafted, he ended up playing last year. I remember somebody tweeting out a highlight of him picking off a pass for the Raiders. I was like, am I supposed to cheer right now as a former Broncos fan? Like, I don't feel right about cheering for this, but hey, it's Notre Dame guy, so let's go do it. But I think Devonte has a chance to be better than both of them because he covers like Jordan, but a little bit better. He's a little bit more faster. He kind of is a little bit more physical and built more like Thomas Harper, but now he's got to go prove that he can play like it. And I mean, we liked what he did this spring, but he also didn't play a lot this spring. And so they're going to need, like, he didn't play a whole lot. I don't think he played at all in the blue gold game, or very little at all.
We didn't see very much of him, and I think that also adds to the intrigue of him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we didn't really get a chance to see like him. Like, for me, like him, Malachi Fields, and like there's a kind of a group of guys that they brought in, but haven't really seen what they can do in a gold helmet yet. So there's going to be some discussion about him once we get to fall camp.
Well, what's interesting about Devonte Smith is they treated him like the other players on the current roster who were already proven commodities.
Right.
I thought that was interesting. We didn't see him in the same capacity. We didn't see Emil Wagner, that much of Jeremiah Love, Jaden Greathouse. Honestly, we didn't see a whole lot of Christian Gray either. I mean, we saw him out there, but going through 7-on-7s, it was a lot of Carson Hobbs was out there.
Because Christian, people don't know this. Christian was dealing with multiple injuries at the end of the year. His hand was never fully healthy, which I think is partly why he got a little grabby. But he had a couple different things that he was kind of dealing with at the end of the year, and they just wanted to get him mentally and physically healthy in the spring.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's what adds to the intrigue of the conversation around Devonte Smith, is because going based off of what the coaching staff thinks, more specifically Mike Mickens, they treated him like one of those proven commodities. From our point of view, it's a little bit, I don't want to say frustrating, but I would have just loved to see what he could have done in the blue and gold. But also, on the other hand, I kind of trust what Mike Mickens' evaluation of him is. And if you don't feel the need, based on what we saw, there's a lot of practices that we weren't at to see what first-team reps looked like and what was going on where. So he very well could have been in the mix in those, but I think it's also a little promising that they treated him like one of those proven commodities that was already on the roster too.
That's very telling.
Mm-hmm.
Very telling.
Another question, and we kind of talked about it a little bit in the last segment, guys, but I do want to revisit it a little bit because it is a legitimate question for, this group and these corners in this room. Is the freshman class as good as we hope it is? Because we talked about it they're counting on this group to hit the 2 deep, and they're counting on this group to have, quote unquote, boots on the ground in games. This isn't a group that can kind of ease into things and not necessarily be a part of what's going on game day. This is a group that they're going to be counting on. And are they as good as we hope it is?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we spent a lot of time on that in the last segment, but it's important.
It is.
They're especially in hopefully a 15, 16 game season.
Right.
They're just going to need that group to play.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
No
doubt about it. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it, obviously, but it's still a very legitimate question that needs to be asked, and we'll get answers on it.
They're going to play.
Right.
But is it because the need is going to force them to play, but do they play at a level where they would have played anyway, even if the need wasn't there?
Right.
They didn't necessarily need Christian Gray to play in 2023, but he played it a way where they still worked him into the rotation because they're just like, this kid's got to get some experience. He can help us. Benjamin Morrison was a little bit of both. They didn't need him to become a starter, but they needed him to play. And he forced his way in the starting lineup like in 5 minutes. I mean, it's obvious from the Ohio State game, like that's their best corner. I mean, I would argue Cam Hart might have been their best corner in 2023, but in 2022, and that's not because Benjamin wasn't really good. I just thought Cam Hart was unbelievably good.
So well that year and was just undervalued by people.
So underrated.
But anyway.
But in 2022, Cam was still in the evolution of becoming a corner process.
Agreed.
And Benjamin was just like, the day he arrived, you're like, I remember talking to a parent of a cornerback who Benjamin beat out quickly, who said nobody was mad about it in the room. He's like, Bryan, he goes, I was at practice one day for a parents' day, and we're like, who's 20? Like, that cat's different.
Right.
And this is parents of other corners, and they knowing what it means for their child. You know what I mean? And they're like, who's this 20 kid? This guy's legit. I mean, it was like the minute he showed up, you're like, okay, he's gonna play. But I mean, they had a guy coming back that year who was going into his third year as a starter, who started for a team that played in the college football playoffs in 2020, and Clarence Lewis.
Yeah, that's
and like that, I mean, it was like day one, it was like, yeah, he's better than Clarence. Like, and it's not really close. And by middle of the year, Clarence was literally getting backup minutes. And it wasn't like early, it was like kind of like they both played. And very quickly, it was like, okay, Benjamin and Cam are their corners. And Clarence is the guy that spells them. Is that what happens here? Because Benjamin was in a same exact situation these guys were in. He had to play in the 2 deep that year. Had to play in the 2 deep that year. These guys have to be in the 2 deep this year. They don't have to be starters, but they have to play.
Right.
Fortunately for them, I should say fortunately for them, but there's the bar of who they got to beat out is a lot higher than what it was in 2022.
Sure.
It's a little different animal.
Final question that we didn't really touch on yet, and I think that it is kind of just like this looming, not cloud, that's not right, but there's just a looming situation here that I know people are aware of and they talk about it, but specifically to the corners, because of the way that they've been allowed to play for the last few years, how will the cornerbacks be affected by Chris Ash, the new defensive coordinator? I think that's a very legitimate question.
I mean, like we said, if we had an answer for it, it wouldn't be on this list. I'll say this, and I don't want to try to
explain why it's a question. I mean, we know who the D coordinator is. We know what he did at Ohio State in 2014. There's a reason it's a question mark.
Yeah, and it's also for that reason. His previous track record as being defensive coordinator at the collegiate level has kind of been
not
sporadic.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, you had the good sample size at Ohio State, and then you had the really
Wisconsin.
Bad. Yeah, and Wisconsin, but then you had the really bad sample size at Texas. But then there's a lot of moving parts with that, and so I think where this gets really, really interesting to talk about is because Mike Mickens is still there. He is still the defensive pass game coordinator. And so how much continuity are you going to have from 24 to 25, knowing Mike Mickens is still with his guys, but Chris Ash could be introducing some new things. Now, I am under the impression that I don't take the extreme on either side, and that when somebody hears Coach Ash say this is still going to be Notre Dame's defense, they're not going to run as much man coverage as they did last season. I think just by numbers, I don't know if that's going to be true. I'm also not on the other end that here's they're going to play more zone, and here's that every single day they're running quarters or cover 3. I don't think it's going to be that end of the spectrum either. I think they want to diversify what they do on defense. But this is one of those questions that I don't even know if we're going to get answered in fall camp. That's going to be something that starts to get answered on August 31st, and we're going to learn something new every Saturday from then on. But at the end of the day, based on the skill set of the players you have in the room, I'm expecting to see a lot of the same. But look, based on what we saw a little bit in the postseason, I don't think it would be a bad idea for them to also get well-versed in playing zone coverage a little bit either. And so that's what's interesting about this. I don't know what Chris Ash is going to bring to the table. I would love to. I would love to answer the questions on the message boards and in mailbags and in buy-sell holds about what I think I'm going to see. But at the end of the day, it's all going to be speculation until the regular season gets here.
And look, we know they're going to play more zone. The question is how much and what type. And my fear is that they go to more of a heavy zone team. And I think that'd be a mistake. I do. But to your point, why did they struggle so much against USC? Because they started trying to implement a bunch of zone looks in that game, and players made a lot of mistakes. They were just flat out. Part of the issue against USC guys was, we had to talk about Christian Gray's in position, but then you don't finish the playoff. But there's some other times you're like, how's that guy that wide open? This is a blown coverage. Corner thought it was zone, safety thought it was man, or he thought his zone was something different. And because they hadn't done it all year, then they try to implement it for Lincoln Riley, which I still don't understand, because you played a lot of zone out in LA 2 years ago and got whooped. You played a lot of man last year, destroyed USC, and then you go back to mixing up man and zone in 2024 in LA, and you get beat again. I'm picking up a pattern here. And so it's like, because you hadn't really worked on it, it was like you were going to go out and make a bunch of mistakes, and they did. So to your point, Trev, I think there's a need to have a legitimate zone package to just give teams more to think about and to mix things up. And because I think also with the corners you have, Christian Gray is as good as you're going to find at baiting a quarterback and then driving on the ball. Because they did a little bit more off man with him early in the year last year. And that's why he almost had like 4 picks and a couple pick sixes early in the year, is because they were letting him kind of read routes and drive. He's better there. And Leonard Moore at 6'2 plus 195, very fast, could turn a couple. Like, Vince, you remember the Michigan State game in 17? Like that drive, Notre Dame was up 14-7, and they're driving, and you could see it happening. Were you at that game by chance? So you saw this. You could see that whole drive. Julian Love was baiting Bryan Lewerke, and he just kept playing off, and then you just like, he is waiting on a quick game throw, because you could just see his body, like he's baiting him. And then Lewerke tries to throw a hitch. Julian reads it, jumps in front and runs it back for it was the whole drive. Julian was baiting him into that throw because they'd seen some film and they were mixing things up. You can have more of that in a team that plays some man, some zone. But when you've got Leonard Moore and Christian Gray in the team, you still need to be a team that plays a lot of man coverage. Does it need to be as much man? Now, as a team, they didn't play as much man as people think they did as an entire defense.
Exactly.
The corners played a ton of man. They did a lot of man stuff outside, and then they'd mix up some zones and some pattern match stuff with the safeties and linebackers. The corners played a ton of man. And they just weren't out there playing cover 0 all game. You know what I mean? And cover 1 all game. That's my point. The corners played a lot of man. But when I look at it, it's I like a mix, but it's got to be the right kind of mix. Don't go away from what made you so good. Just tweak what made, and give yourself more tools in the tool shed. But don't change. Don't be a team that, because like at Ohio State, they were a heavy zone team. I don't want to see that. You're doing what you think you should do instead of what the talent dictates. That's what you're doing. You've got big time man corners that also have some unique length and speed and ability to drive on football that can make you be good at playing zone as well. But if Notre Dame's just going to sit back and play a ton of cover 3, you're wasting these talented corners, wasting them. Yeah, but we won't give them any post routes. Yeah, but you're also not going to be as dominant shutting teams down either. So it's got to be a healthy mix but one in which you're still you're playing a lot of man with your corners. He's got to find that balance, and we don't know that he is. We don't, because he may very well find the perfect balance. We don't know. That's the reason it's a question.
All right, so we've got some matchups that we want to talk about, and this is an interesting kind of a conversation here because again we're talking about matchups for the corners, not necessarily matchups for Notre Dame team. It is matchups for the corners, so that's why this might go, because I know Trevor's got one that people are going to be like, huh, okay.
Does he? Okay.
I think so. I went, huh?
No, I don't know what his teams are.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
And it made me go, huh? But you guys know these teams better than I do. So to my point, it's very interesting. So I want you guys to kind of go through some interesting matchups that Notre Dame has on the schedule this year that are going to be good matchups for these corners. Good as in a big matchup, as in it's going to be, good on good kind of a deal. So, Trev, I'll let you go first, my man, since I kind of set you up there. So,
yeah, you put a lot of pressure on him because I'm like waiting. I'm like leaning back, like, let's hear it, Trev. Let's hear these matchups that you just said.
No, I know I was talking a lot of smack about Stanford, but no. So,
and Mimosi's not there anymore, Trev.
Neither is Alik Ayumaner. I just like saying his name.
If they both would have come back, they would have had one of the best receiving corps in Notre Dame.
100%. Yeah,
that's what's got to be so disappointing if you're one of the 7 fans that Stanford has, is that they could have had a nasty receiver and running back room this year. But
I was in that neck of the woods a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't see a whole lot of Stanford gear. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah, I get that.
Just saying.
You didn't go to Disney World then, or Disneyland, or whatever it is. You might have seen some, or some USC fans.
Yeah, 12, I think, to be exact. So one of mine, and Bryan sent us over his list for, most telling matchups, and I was looking over it, and I was actually surprised he didn't put this one on there. But I think Boston College is going to be an interesting matchup for this group, too, because I like Boston College's receivers.
I had him initially, but then I switched it to Syracuse for a reason I'll explain later. But yes, please go on.
Understandably so. Looking at the matchup just for receivers versus corners, I like Boston College's receiving corps. Lewis Bond, Reed Harris, Jaden Skeeg, VJ Wilkins. This is a good group of guys. And one of the reasons why I have it in my list is because I think this could be a team that could potentially be overlooked. I don't think they're going to overlook USC's receiving corps, especially not after what happened last year. It is still a telling matchup because just the skill set is as such. But one of the reasons why Boston College is on this list for me is historically when Notre Dame has faced them, they haven't had that good of a passing offense. Their skilled positions haven't been as good as what I project them to be this upcoming season. And so I have Boston College on this list for me. This is one that I think that could sneakily test, if sneakily is a word, one that could potentially.
You're allowed to make up words on this show, Trev, if they're easy to understand, and that's very easy. And I think I've used sneakily.
Okay,
Vince, have I?
Perfect.
I've already introduced it, so you're good.
Love it. That's good. A green light from the boss. So if Boston College could sneakily give this secondary some problems, that is one that I wanted to put on the list, though, legitimately, because this is a very underrated receiving corps.
You and I have spent so much time talking about that receiving corps the last couple months as we've kind of Reed Harris I think is going to have a big breakout year.
Me too.
Now, here's the concern for Boston College. The quarterback that carried them all year, that gave them their attitude and is the reason that they won games, is now at Florida State. Talk about, dude, you went down to Florida State and thought you were somebody. Like, you got benched at BC. I'm sorry, Thomas Castellanos. You need to kind of keep your trap shut because oh my gosh.
Did you see what one of the Alabama linebackers said at their SEC media day? They were asked about it, and he just looked at the mic and he just said, the disrespect will be handled. And I was like,
good for him.
That's
it's like normally I'd be kind of rooting for Florida State in that game, but I'm like, that kid is hard to root for. Yeah. There's confidence, and then there's like, dude, you're being kind of you need to maybe shut up. But yeah, it was a weird situation. But I just think that receiving corps with an offseason, this is going to be year 2 of being in Bill O'Brien's offense. But then also looking at it from a standpoint of, I think they're going to have more of a true passer in the offense now, where they had a guy that wasn't. I mean, look, you look at how Lewis Bond finished the year last year. Really good game against North Carolina, 9 catches for 81 yards. He had 7 for 99 against Nebraska. He performed pretty well in that game. You look at what Reed Harris did in his last 4 games. I mean, Reed Harris going into the last 4 games with a new quarterback. Prior to that, he only had 6 catches going into that. And then he had 11 catches for, almost 300 yards, I think, in the last 4 games. So he's big, tall kid, long, has some good speed. Last 4 games of the year last year, he had 6 catches or 12 catches, 7, 10, 12. Yeah, 12 catches for 264 yards in the last 4 games alone. Against SMU, he had 4 for 78. Against North Carolina, 3 for 76 and a tutty. Pitt, he had 3 for 85 and a touchdown. And then Nebraska, he went 2 for 25 in the rain. But Lewis Bond went off in that game. So to your point, and they got a pretty good tight end. They had 2 good tight ends last year. One of them's back. So I like that, Trev. I like that one. I'll tell you why I went with Syracuse instead. As individual receivers, the BC unit is better. What I'm curious about is how will Notre Dame late in the year handle sort of the moment if Steve Angeli's starting. Will they play within the system? Will they go out there and try to make a play because it's their buddy? Because what y'all got to understand is I want to beat my friend more than I want to beat the guy that I don't like. Because the guy I don't like, I can just go beat him and then I don't have to worry about him anymore. But my buddy, if I beat him or if he beats me, I got to hear about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm going to talk more trash when we were young. We talked probably more trash to our friends than we did guys we didn't like. Because at least I was. If I didn't like you, I didn't care about it. I wasn't going to talk to you. If you were my guy, we're going to always be talking trash. So, but I think there's schematic questions about that matchup that I'm curious about. You've got senior day. There's all these different things that make me say that's a game where that's the last potential team that concerns me throwing the ball on Notre Dame of the regular season. And so that's why one of them, I have 3 others. Miami's one on the road, first game in sort of an adjusted system. Miami's receiving core is very unproven. It's also talented. There's some, it's not as talented as last year's unit. At least it's not as experienced as last year's unit, but it's talented. JJ Trader's a talented kid. They got some portal guys. CJ Daniels, what kind of bounce back year does he have for them? You've got Nye Carr, who I think is incredibly talented. You've got some freshmen coming in that can play for you. I think, and then being on the road in that environment also adds something to it. You've got a talented veteran quarterback. And there's some gaminess to Shannon Dawson's system that he's going to put you in some binds, give you some double moves and some post-snap switches and things like that you got to be prepared for. NC State's another one. Speaking of, like, NC State was my BC for you, Trev. Very underrated receiving core. Love Noah Rogers. He might end up being one of the 2 or 3 best receivers on their schedule this year. He's got to prove it. And there's other guys more proven. But by the end of the year, it won't shock me if Noah Rogers is there. And he didn't leave Ohio State because he can't play at Ohio State. Like, there were other reasons why, and being close to home, and it was a pretty loaded depth chart. But he's a legit player. Wesley Grimes, and there's going to be some times, I'll bet, that they try to get Justin Jolly, their tight end, 6'3", 235, 240-pound tight end, matched up on the corners as well in some different looks. So just try to bully him. I think that's a big matchup. And then also USC. I want to see what they do against USC this year, because the guys that gave them problems last year are still there, at least one of them for sure. Now, Jacoby Lane didn't give them a lot of problems outside the 5-yard line, but still inside the 5, they couldn't cover him and keep him out of the end zone. That matters. So, how they going to cover Mekhi Lemon better this year than they did last year? Could Devonte Smith hold up better against him than what Jordan Clark did last year? It's going to be a big matchup. And USC is going to have a lot to prove that game, but so will Notre Dame. And I'm especially curious to see how Christian Gray plays, because there's 2 ways it could go, Vince. One is I want to prove that last year was a fluke. I wasn't, and I'm going to lock him down. But then the other part is I want to prove it so bad that I start trying to make plays. And that's when you get beat on a double move, or you get beat on a post-snap switch, or things like that. Or you make a mistake where I tried to jump that 3rd and 5, and instead of just doing your job and drive on the hitch and break it up or tackle it, I try to step in front and pick it off. I miss. He catches it with room to run. Like, it's going to go one of those two ways. And so that's why the USC one is another one that I looked at. But I like your BC one as well, Trev, just as far as that's a talented matchup. That's a group you're going to have to be prepared for. And Lewis Bond and Reed Harris are very different players. Lewis Bond's, I think, like 5'11", shifty guy. And Reed Harris is 6'4", and he's going to run verticals and posts and overs and back shoulders.
Yeah, averaged 28.6 yards per catch last year.
Yes. I mean, I think he had 486. Let's real quick.
On
I just
17 catches.
But like at Notre Dame last year, he would have been Notre Dame's 3rd leading receiver, and he was only 4 yards behind Bo Collins. He had 24 fewer catches than Bo Collins and only 4 fewer yards. That's not a shot at Bo Collins. Just tells you that kid did a lot with his 17 catches, and they're going to keep doing that this year. He's going to be running down the field, and it's going to be a fun battle.
All right. This is one of the favorite parts of the show where we wrap up our cornerback talk with bold predictions. And so, gentlemen, this is where we, again, our bold predictions are supposed to be fun. They are supposed to be rooted in reality, but they are supposed to be, hey, let's have some fun with this thing. And that's what I love most about bold predictions. So I've been throwing it to Trevor a lot, Bryan. So I'm going to throw it to you first on this one. Give us your bold prediction for the corners this year.
I just want to say this. I want y'all to come correct today. Y'all let me down a little bit in the last bold prediction. Y'all got a little bit like, I'm looking at Vince here, Trev. My eyes are cued in on Vince here. Y'all better come correct a little bit on the bold predictions today. So what is not a bold prediction? Leonard Moore is going to be an All-American. Okay. Whatever. Here's my bold prediction. Christian Gray will not be on Notre Dame's football team in 2026 because of how good he's going to play. And don't act like that was yours. No, I like it. No, I'm digging it because I think Christian Gray is going to be dominant this year. I really do. I think he's going to have a monster year. And I think he's going to emerge as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, like the NFL draft for next year. And I think he's going to have a monster year. Now, I think Leonard is also, and I still think Leonard Moore is going to be their best corner. But when I look at the other corners that people look at as top corners, I look at Malik Muhammad, I look at Jermon McCoy from Tennessee and Avion Terrell from Tennessee. I look at AJ Harris and Chandler Rivers, and I'm like, there's no reason Christian Gray can't. He's not. There's no reason he can't be as good as all those guys, if not better. And I think he becomes that guy this year. I think he's going to have a major breakout year and not only become one of 2 All-Americans. It's part of my other bold prediction. There'll be 2 All-American corners this year, but Christian Gray will also play at a level where he declares and becomes Notre Dame's first round draft pick at cornerback since I believe Tom Carter back in 1992.
Wow.
Because Jeff Burris was considered a safety when he went in the first round.
Trevor, I need you to do me a favor, and I need you to read to Bryan what my...
I believe you, man. You and I are always on the same page on stuff. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know, but you're like, you got to bring it. And then you're like, and here's...
Well, you're the one that made me go first. I always like to go last. So you guys don't, so I don't steal your stuff, okay? You're the one that's like, I'm going to put Bryan on the spot first. So,
but no, that's okay. Because I'm not going to go over everything that you just said because I agree with all of it. I think Christian Gray is poised to do something very special this year. And I think a lot of people are not going to see it coming. Like from a neck, like I rewatched the USC game the other day and they were just look, he didn't have a good game, but he had spurts that were really good. But they just were hammering Christian Gray on the telecast. It's like, oh, they're going to keep picking on him. They're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep doing that. Yeah. And that's like the last impression people have. Also, the pass in the Ohio State game. Like, those are the impressions people have.
There's a lot of good stuff in between those.
Yeah, that's the thing.
How'd that keep picking on Christian Gray work out for USC?
Right, exactly. And so I think he is poised to have a really, really good season. He's got the talent to do it. He's got the demeanor to do it, which I think is uber important when you're talking about a corner. And you got, the short memory and all of those different things. Look, he is now in line with the great corners at Notre Dame under Mike Mickens. And I think he's going to run with that.
What a weird year he had, though, Vince.
Right?
Before the injury, everybody's like, oh, he's better than Benjamin Morrison. He might be their best cornerback. And I'm like, okay, he's playing well, but,
right.
you know, like, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. And then by the end of the year, it's like, he's going to get beat out by insert name of any other scholarship corner.
I know.
You know, it's like,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And now
he
was
neither of those. He was neither of those. You
Right.
were correct. And he's had to deal with that. And he's going to go one of two ways. We said this multiple times. It's either going to he's going to put too much pressure on himself and struggle mentally, or he's going to become stronger from it. And I think he's going to be stronger from it, and he's going to have a monster year because they're going to challenge him.
Right.
Like, that's just a fact.
100%.
And they're playing a lot more teams that like to throw this year. So there's going to be more opportunities for him to make some plays. So I think Christian Gray is going to emerge as a big-time player for Notre Dame this year.
I'm excited for Christian.
And declare for the NFL draft and then become a first-round draft pick.
Yep, I'm excited. I'm excited for him. He is entering into the stages of being one of my favorite players, and I'm really excited. And
he's such a great kid,
exactly.
And that's the thing about it is like
100%.
He's such a great kid, and I think if I know enough about how he was raised as I think that I do, I think he was built to handle that adversity, just like Cam Williams or Cam Hart. I mean, if you know Cam Hart's mom and you know how he was raised, and not just by his mom, but by his family, because it was a family affair.
The village.
But right, exactly. But if you know, he was taught how to handle life, how to, look, this is football. Yeah, it's okay to love football. It's okay to take football seriously, but that's not what defines you. You're defined by the man you are. And I think Cam always knew that. And I think Christian has a lot of that too, where, hey man, you weren't raised to let these things beat you down. You weren't raised to let life kick you down. You were raised to put your faith in God and trust and overcome. And I think that's what we're going to see from Christian Gray this year.
Agreed. All right, Trevor, bring us home. What are your bold predictions, my friend?
I got two. I got one for an individual player, and I have one for the unit as a whole. My one for the individual player, I think Leonard Moore is going to win the Jim Thorpe Award. What do you mean?
They don't ever give it to the best DB, Trev.
And that's why it's a bold prediction.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Well played. Well played. I was like, hold on. You think he's going to be the best DB, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why would you think the Jim Thorpe Award's then going to give him the trophy?
Mm-hmm.
Hence the he's figuring it out, Trev. Vince, he's figuring it out. I dig this kid. I dig it. I love it.
But so I think it's hand in hand. A lot of the outside of the 2023 award winner, who was the safety from Air Force, kid had a great season, not better than what Xavier Watts had. But Xavier Watts wasn't even a finalist last year after winning the Bronco Nagurski Award, which is also
and crazy. He was better last year than he was the year before. Stupid.
Yeah, one less interception, but added like 25 tackles. It is what it is. I will never get over
breakups, that. Just better in coverage numbers. It's just
it's crazy. But I think the stars are starting to align for Leonard Moore to win this award. He is almost the consensus number one returning corner in the country. He was one of three now per PFF's rank, like as a true sophomore, to get that award, that honor is like the number one returning player at their position on defense. The two other players he's in contention with is Derek Stingley Jr., who just got a fat contract extension for the Texans. Caleb Downs, we all know where he's at. Of course, Archer, the first time he pops in the chat is when we talk about this.
We told him to let us know what he thinks. We told him to let us know what he thinks.
We did. So Archer, appreciate you as always. But I think the stars are kind of starting to align for Leonard Moore to kind of get that award, because what he has that Xavier Watts didn't is, I think, as crazy as it is to say, I think Leonard Moore is getting a little bit more national attention this season than what Xavier Watts had coming into 2024.
Yes.
And I think that's going to play into his favor. So I have Leonard Moore winning the Jim Thorpe Award over Caleb Downs. And then who I do believe will be a finalist. I think he's going to be a finalist again.
If the trophy if Caleb Downs and Leonard Moore both stay healthy, if they're not both finalists for this award, then they just need to literally get rid of the entire voting
100%.
block that has a decision in who is on that, because it's become a joke.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't think Leonard Moore and Caleb Downs have a shot to win that award. Like, well, what makes you say that? You don't think they're both great? Well, I think they're both great, but they're just going to look at who had the most interceptions or whatever, some other arbitrary stat, and be like, okay, yeah, we're going to go with that guy, even though, yeah, let's give it to the best DB in the country's teammate won it a few years ago.
And that's what's weird about that award is last year it wasn't even the most interceptions, and it was like Xavier Watts had more interceptions than all three of the finalists last year, which is crazy. But besides the point. And then my bold prediction for the unit is I think between the three starters, Christian Gray, Leonard Moore, and Devonte Smith, they're going to get 10 interceptions. So last season, to put some numbers behind it, they had 6. Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, and Jordan Clark had 6 interceptions. And then when you
how many they dropped, Trev?
That's exactly. Exactly. I mean, shoot, Christian Gray had 3 of those, 3 of the 6, and he dropped 4 of them.
Yeah.
And only caught the difficult ones.
That's right. The ones that hit him right in the hands that he should be easy pick 6, he just dropped.
Wow.
The one-handed ones, the diving to win the Orange Bowl, those he makes. It's the ones that hit him right in the hands.
Spinning around, doing a full 360 against USC on a back shoulder.
One hand against Pitt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the one he takes back 98 yards to the house. But I think despite all the hype around Leonard Moore, it goes back to the conversation we had earlier today. You're going to have to throw at them. I think of it very similar to when Alabama kind of strung together their streak of producing some really good corners. And the conversation every Saturday was, look, if you want to beat Alabama, you have to attack their man coverage. You have to attack their corners and be willing to, because you're not just going to run on them for 200 yards. Now, I see that being a very similar conversation with Notre Dame's corners this year. What makes this over the top bold for me is the nickel position, because I kind of have – I don't think it's going to be they have 10 interceptions. Christian Gray and Leonard Moore have 9 of them, and Devonte Smith has 1. Last season, Jordan Clark only had 1 interception. I don't know if Thomas Harper had any in 2023. And so
I'm looking it up now. I don't think he did, but if he did, it was 1.
Okay.
He did not have any. Yeah.
So then there we go. In 2 seasons.
And Tariq Bracy's only pick in 2022 was as an out. Remember they went to a 4-3 defense against BYU, and he played outside corner, and they threw that deep ball on him, and he picked it off. That was his only pick of the year. So even though he was their nickel in 2022, his only pick was as playing outside corner.
Then there we go. And so that's the nickel position is what makes this a little bit bolder of a take, on top of just odds are they're going to try to attack the safeties a little bit more because of the youth there. They don't have Xavier Watts. But I think Devonte Smith going from a position on Notre Dame's defense that has had 1 interception basically in 2 years out of the nickel, he's going to get 2 to 3 at least. Depends on if they face Penn State.
I get that. That's exactly what Archer said.
Archer, man. Come on.
Something we agree about.
Yeah. Vince, do you have another one?
I did not. That was the one that I had.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one that I had. So, all right, guys.
He's all bummed. Look at his face, Trev. He's so mad. He was ready to lay out like a really bold prediction.
Like, I felt really good. I was like, nobody's going to have this. It's like a little outside the box. Like, nobody's really talking about it. Like, I was excited. And then my hopes and dreams were dashed.
Just to remind you, it was your fault because you could have gone first.
You're right. I could have
gone first.
I could have. I spun the wheel of destiny, and it didn't end in my favor. So it is what it is. But anyway, that's going to do it for our cornerback preview for the University of Notre Dame and what all that entails. And so stick around, because we got one more topic that we are going to get to before we get out of here. But before we do, make sure we hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends, and join us over at the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. That's where you find all your intel and all the juice that you're looking for, because, there is that juice. And a lot of times the fun part about the board is we carry on conversations that we're having on the show that gets carried over to the message board. So if you, didn't get your comment
you can carry it over to the message board.
So bring it over and we can discuss more, which is a lot of fun. So again, that is if you're interested, again, that's the best money that you can spend. It doesn't cost all that much if you are a fan of like one of those
$49.99 for a year. That's it.
If you like one of those coffee drinks, this is like one coffee drink a month, basically gets you where you want to be. And I think that's worth the sacrifice. I don't ever go there, but whatever. So boards.irishbreakdown.com is where you want to go.
You don't ever go for coffee.
Coffee, yeah.
Right. You do go to the message bar. I just want to make sure.
All the time, yeah. Actually, it's the tab right next to StreamYard right now, actually.
Just want to make sure everybody knows what Vince is talking about.
No, I meant the coffee joint. No names needed, but I don't ever go there either. But no, I'm on the board a lot. But anyway, check it out. That's boards.irishbreakdown.com.